All right, guys, user stories. What's the purpose? A user story represents a small, concise statement of functionality or quality needed to deliver value to a specific stakeholder. User stories capture the needs of a specific stakeholder and enable teams to define features of value or stakeholder using short. A user story is kind of like the result of an interview. Like the story came into the dude left the house, bought groceries, and then stopped by into the shop and did A, B, C, D, E here, and then left, continued his day. When you do that, you kind of humanize the interaction with people and ultimately create a certain kind of like, you create the scenario where people kind of like come in and you kind of like assume why they came in and how that kind of like started building. All right, it can serve as a basis of identifying needs and allow for the prioritization, estimating, and the planning of solutions. A user story is typically a sentence or two that describes who has the need addressed by the story, the goal the user is trying to accomplish, and any additional information that may be critical to understanding the scope of the story. With a focus on stakeholder value, user stories invite exploration to the requirements by promoting additional conversations with stakeholders and grouping functional requirements for delivery. User stories can be used to capture stakeholder needs and prioritize development of solutions as a basis of estimating and planning solution delivery, as a basis of generating user acceptance tests, as a metric of measuring the delivery of value, as a unit of tracing related requirements, as a basis of additional analysis, and as a unit of project management and reporting. So the story could be used to capture the needs and prioritize development of the solution, right? Because you're creating a story around the character, which is the user. As a basis of estimating and planning solution delivery, because like, no, if this is the story, if this is how they interact with the place, this is how we implement the solution. As a basis of generating user acceptance tests, be like, oh, okay, if that's the case, then let's see if using this as an actual like storyline, we can see how people say yes and no. As a metric for measuring the delivery of value, because like we're estimating, right? So if we're estimating, we go like, oh, every person that leaves to do this, or every once in a while, or whatever. As a basis of additional analysis, unit for tracing related requirements, and a unit for project. Everything's related because you're imagining the person, the user interacting with you, and then basically you're kind of like creating the solution around that interaction. So I think that's a good thing. And what are the elements? Well, there's a title, optional, because the title of the story describes an activity the stakeholder wants to carry out with the system. Typically, it's an active web goal phrase similar to the way use cases are titled. And there's a statement of value. There's no mandatory structure for user stories. The most popular format includes who is the person, what is the necessary action, behavior, feature, or quality, and why the benefit or value received by the user when the story is implemented. For example, as a who, I need to, what, and so that why. Given when, then is another common format. Given this, when this is needed, then this happens. Conversation user stories help teams and explore to understand the features described in the story and the value it will deliver to the stakeholders. The story itself doesn't capture everything. There is to know about stakeholder needs, and the information in the story is supplemented by further modeling as the story is delivered. So while telling the story, everyone kind of like adds their own salt and pepper. Is this what they're talking about? Yeah. A user story may be supported through the development of detailed acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria define the boundaries of a user story and help the team understand what the solution needs to provide in order to deliver value for the stakeholders. Acceptance criteria may be supplemented with other analysis models as needed. I'm trying to remember the acceptance criteria when we actually discussed it a while back. Okay. What are the considerations? Strengths easily understandable by stakeholders can be developed through a variety of elicitation techniques. Focuses on value to stakeholders. A shared understanding of the business domain is enhanced through the collaboration on defining and exploring user stories. Tied to small, implementable, and testable slices of functionality, which facilitates rapid delivery and frequent customer feedback. And what are the limitations? All right, the last two are interesting. So focus on value to stakeholders. A shared understanding of business domain is enhanced through collaboration by defining and exploring user stories. Like literally, like just really, look at the business and imagine somebody interacting with the business, going through point A, the flow of like deciding to work with the business, and then finalizing an actual interaction. That's it. Tied to small, impenetrable, testable slices of functionality which facilitate rapid delivery and frequent customer feedback. In general, user stories are intended as a tool for short-term capture prioritization of requirements and not for long-term knowledge retention. Long-term knowledge retention is probably data collection or data mining. Neglecting this principle can lead to following issues. The conversational approach can challenge a team since they do not have all the answers, and detailed specifications up front. It requires context and visibility. The team can lose sight of the big picture if stories are not traced back through validation or supplemented with higher level analysis and visual artifacts. Are not traced back through the team can lose sight of the big picture. It may not provide enough documentation to meet the need for governance. A baseline for future work or stakeholder expectations. Additional documentation may be required. So I feel like here there's a bit more kind of like, okay, we did the stories, but we also need approval from the stakeholders in order for us not to be like smooth. Like the need for governance, right? Like a baseline of future work, a stakeholder expectation, additional documentation may be required. And here what they're talking about is basically like, user story could sound nice, feel nice, but be vague and not really like explore the actual like functionality that's required from it. They may not provide enough documentation to meet the need for governance, a baseline for future work of stakeholder expectations. And the idea is basically like, it might just be like one of those like, wishy-washy stories. Interesting. I guess as human beings, we could always take something and like fuck it over, right? Yalla, next is vendor assessment. Love you.